Water is literally a silent destroyer. Look, if you're tuning into this explainer right now, chances are you've just spotted a damp patch, maybe a cracked seal, or, worst case scenario, a really suspicious water stain on the ceiling right below your bathroom. Take a deep breath. You are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're taking a structured, calming diagnostic journey through the exact steps you need to take to make the smartest, safest choice for your home. All right, let's dive right into this.
So, this is the exact question on literally every leaky tub owner's mind right now. You're standing there staring at that tub, wondering, is this a $10 tube of caulk kind of weekend, or are we talking about a complete bathroom demolition kind of month? We're going to clear up all that confusion today by looking directly at the data and the guidelines used by actual plumbing professionals.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. First, diagnosing the leak source. Second, when to choose repair. Third, when to choose replacement. Fourth, hidden costs and accessibility. And finally, number 5, when to call professionals. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, diagnosing the leak source, finding the clues. In this detective phase, we really have to understand the stakes. I mean, what does water intrusion actually mean in this context? Well, bathtub leaks rarely stay small for very long. When water seeps behind the wall or under the floor, it kicks off this whole chain reaction. It leads to a massive risk of mold, it destroys your subflooring, and it totally weakens the surrounding materials. Ignoring a seemingly small leak? Yeah, that's never a safe option, mostly because of what's happening where you just can't see it. So how do we actually find the leak? The whole decision to repair or replace completely hinges on where this water is escaping from. Step 1 is totally surface level. You're going to closely inspect the visible areas for deteriorated caulk, failed grout, or cracked tub surfaces right at the rim. Step 2 takes us to the plumbing. Are the drain and overflow connections loose? Are they showing serious wear? And then step 3, this gets a lot deeper. You need to look behind the surround, if you can, to see if the actual waterproofing layer has been compromised. Getting a clear, accurate diagnosis right here, that is absolutely your best defense against wasting money later on. Moving right along to Section 2, when to choose repair, focusing on surface-level solutions. Okay, this is where you can breathe a massive sigh of relief, if your tub meets these specific criteria. First off, the tub surface itself has to be entirely intact, so no major cracks or structural movement. Second, the water intrusion appears completely confined to visible, accessible areas. We're talking joints, caulk lines, or surface sealants. Third, if the issue happens to be the plumbing connections, like the drain or the overflow, they might show wear, but they can be accessed and replaced without tearing open massive sections of your wall. And finally, an inspection confirms that the subflooring and wall materials are only minimally affected, with very limited moisture. In these exact scenarios, a targeted repair, like re-caulking with the right product, swapping a drain gasket, or resealing seams, is for sure the smartest, fastest path. It stops the water cold without the giant headache of replacing the entire fixture. But what if it's worse? That brings us to Section 3, when to choose replacement, the deeper vulnerabilities. Let's just weigh the symptoms side by side for a second. On one hand, we've got our repair criteria, right? Intact surfaces, highly confined leaks. Pretty straightforward. But on the other hand, we have these severe structural symptoms that absolutely demand a full bathtub replacement. If you are dealing with a totally cracked tub, warped subflooring, or these recurring awful musty odors, a tube of caulk just isn't going to save you here. These are the giant red flags that hidden serious damage is already present. Let's dig a bit deeper into those replacement triggers. You really should be considering a total replacement or even a full surround rebuild if you find significant rust in metal tubs or surface deterioration that proves the material itself is just done. Another massive red flag, repeated leaks after previous sealing attempts. Look, if you've caulked the thing twice and it's still leaking, the problem is way deeper. You also need to look out for extensive moisture damage like soft subflooring or visibly swollen framing. And here's a truly fascinating, kind of wild detail from the source material. Incorrect previous repairs very often dictate a full replacement. For instance, if some previous owner just slapped new sealants over a totally failing waterproofing layer rather than actually fixing the underlying barrier, the whole system is compromised. The foundation is bad and you essentially have to rebuild it from scratch. Which perfectly tees up Section 4, hidden costs and accessibility. This is the plot twist. So, here is the plot twist that completely changes how we calculate home repair budgets. We so often think the cost is just about the raw materials, a new tub versus a new drain pipe. But the real cost? It's all about access.
A quote-unquote cheap repair becomes incredibly expensive if it requires tearing out a huge portion of your bathroom anyway. Think about it. A lot of leak repairs demand opening up walls or floors just to inspect the waterproofing, verify the pipes, and fix the damaged framing. If the demolition work needed just to reach the leak is basically comparable to the work required to install a brand new tub, well then replacement is actually the more efficient, logical path, especially because it totally prevents future problems.
So, to protect yourself from these sneaky hidden access costs, you kind of have to change how you deal with contractors. You absolutely must request an itemized estimate, broken down into 3 distinct categories. First up is diagnosis. What is it going to cost just to find the source of the leak? Second is repair, the actual cost of fixing the plumbing or those sealants. And third, which is usually the most overlooked category, remediation. If moisture has already impacted the materials behind your wall, you really need to know the costs for drying, mold treatment if it's necessary, and replacing the affected construction. If a contractor just hands you one lump sum for a generic repair, you might be in for a nasty shock later when the hidden costs of wall damage remediation pop up. Always demand the breakdown.
All right, bringing it home with Section 5, when to call professionals, and knowing your limits.
So there are some very specific situations that absolutely benefit from immediate expert involvement. You need to call a licensed professional if you suspect hidden piping leaks or if you're dealing with repeated water intrusion that you just can't seem to stop no matter what you try. A massive, glaring red flag is if you start noticing ceiling or wall staining outside the bathroom, like, say, on the ceiling of your living room downstairs. Unless an indoor rain feature was on your renovation vision board, that means the water has traveled far beyond the bathroom, and that is bad news. And of course, if you see persistent dampness or visible mold, it's time to step back. A qualified pro can pressure test the related plumbing and confirm if the waterproofing systems behind the tub have totally failed. Honestly, early intervention by an expert reduces the risk of massive structural damage and actually improves your odds of a repair-only solution before things spiral out of control.
Wow, okay, we've covered a lot of ground on this diagnostic journey today. Everything from inspecting grout lines to uncovering the hidden costs of wall demolition. Ultimately, the choice between repair and replacement really comes down to how far the problem is spread. But I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought to guide your decision as you look at your own tub. Does a surface-level fix today guarantee your long-term peace of mind tomorrow? If the surrounding materials are totally dry, hey, a repair is great. But if that waterproofing is compromised, taking the time to rebuild it right is literally the only way you're going to sleep soundly. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and seriously, good luck with that tub.